Guten Tag, Teile Tzimimim. Let's try to continue with the halachas of Hag'olas Keilim Chelik Beis. We'll continue with a few more klolim before we go to practical. We went through many klolim of Klerishim, Klisheni, and Libun, Hagola, V'chulu. Machvas. There's a halacha of machvas, which is a frying pan. A frying pan is an interesting halacha, that it's a machlekes hapaskim, whether the way the Alter Rebbe explains it, the way some poskim hold, that because it doesn't have a lot of water, it just has a little bit of oil, so therefore the oil could dry up, and therefore it becomes al yedei eish, not al yedei mayim. So therefore, a frying pan, according to this shitta, would need to have libun gomer. Mashenk, the other shitta holds no. Every pot, even that you cook with water, sometimes the water could dry up. Nevertheless, there's always enough moisture left in there somehow. It should be considered bishul, not tzli. According to this opinion, a machvas, because it starts off with also more shemen, then even though it's not regular water, it's still considered bishul. These are two shittas machlekes rishonim. In Yeredeya, in Siman Kuf Chaf Aleph, over there we paskin that lagab shari surin, the halacha is one needs to do libun on a machvas. However, by Hilches Pesach is the halacha that it's enough to do only Hag'olas. And this stira between why over here we paskin by Pesach we're paskin more lekula, and by Shari Surim we're more machmir. So the Beis Yosef, the Bach, and so does the Alter Rebbe, except la halacha and Siman Tov and Aleph, is because, as we mentioned yesterday in the Shir, there's a concept of a teira bala, that heter, which went in through fire, like basar, just flesh, kosher flesh, could be kashered through Hag'olas, even though it went in through eish, because it's called a teira bala. And by chametz, even though there are those shittas who say chametz is not called a teira bala, even before Pesach, because that thing by itself is turning into Isser later on when Pesach comes. It's Shmoy Olaf. It's called the same chametz before Pesach as it's called in Pesach. It just happens to be before Pesach, it's heter, and Pesach it turns into Isser. But it's the same Shmoy. As opposed to Basar, in order to become Asar, has to become Basar B'chalav. It's a new Metzias. Therefore, that is much more kal. But Lagaba Pesach is a machlekes. We paskin, it's not called a teira bala. However, it's a machlekes a paskin. So we kind of have like a svek teira. There's a machlekes a paskin whether chametz b'chalal ever needs libun, because according to the shit that it's a teira bala, it never needs libun. Hag'olas is always enough. The im tim tzaloimer, you're going to want to say as was that we paskin chametz is not a teira bala, like we take a paskin lepoya like that when it's not hefsed meruba. As afa pikein is there are those who are matir that b'chlal every machvas is called bishul, is not called al yedei eish. B'meila you could be matir. The im tim tzaloimer we paskin like the other shita that says no, a machvas is called al yedei eish. It's not called directly. It's not called al yedei mayim. So we have the other shita, but there's still a shita who says it's a teira bala by chametz, and therefore you don't need b'chlal libun. You always could do Hag'olas. So because we're combining the two shittas, that's why the Alter Rebbe, the Beis Yosef, and others say that by chametz, if the shaila is only a chametz dike shaila, we're making that a frying pan could have regular Hag'olas. However, by shari surim, you need libun gomer. So if one goes to kasher in Ukraine or in Russia, of course, always over here, you need always to apply both chumras. All the chumras that apply to chametz, and all the chumras that apply to shari surim over chametz, because over there you're going to deal with both isurim. But if you only have a shaila of a chametz dike frying pan and wants the kasher for Pesach, so the halacha is that one could rely on Hag'olas, not libun. However, the Alter Rebbe says that's only when you have a certain amount of regular oil in there. But if you stand shmir ois a little bit of oil, like they take the spray, a drop of it in the mashu, that it shouldn't stick to it, says the Alter Rebbe, that's not part of the machlekes. That's absolutely al deish. And B'meila versteht sich that there's no water there. That type of a frying pan for sure, even for Pesach, according to the Alter Rebbe, needs to have real libun. It's interesting that the Shach in Yeridei Chelik Beis does bring down a Tshuvas Menachem Azadi from Ramah Mepana. He brings down that he's machalik in a different way. He's machalik that a goyish keli, usually the agent that it's used is also iser. They use chaylev, or their shuman is nevelas treifus. So therefore, that's how Kiva Eger learns pshat in that Tshuvas Menachem Azadi. So according to this Reb Kiva Eger, it comes out the way Menachem Azadi is saying like this: that by chametz, usually the shemen that you use there is an agent which is heter. It's not chametz. The chametz is only the crumbs that you're frying, but the agent that you're using is like water. The shemen is kosher, as opposed to by a goyish keli, the shemen that you're using, that you want to say that's the agent, that's like the water. The shemen itself is the velas, it's chaylev or shuman from a velas and treifus, and therefore you're using it without an agent. So Zokter Kiveger, according to this shit, kommt to sehr interessant halacha. That what? That if somebody will cook yain nesach l'mashal, would need libun, not Hag'olas, even though it's full of water. It's not only the agent, it's a regular bishul, emes bishul, but there is no agent. The vart al yidei mayim the pshad that the iser went in through a medium of water. Kol davar asher lo yavo be'esh taviru b'moy means it went through an agent of water first. But over here the iser is the yain nesach, yeah, or chalavakim. If there's chalavakim, it's the iser itself. So according to this Rabbi Kiva Eger, that even kashering milk for 212 is not going to help you. You need libun. Upon the most achrein macholik, and there's a famous tshuva of some sefer. The Pesach tshuva brings it down there. We're not going to get into whole ariches. He says no, that even yain nesach and all the other things, if it's not shuman, things that burn or shemen, regular, even if the iser itself is being cooked, if it's a regular cooking, it's enough to kasher with Hag'olas. You don't need libun. There is another halacha which we didn't talk about it. When we said things that become aser through klirishin, through heat. There's halacha of kavush. Anything which became soaked in a liquid for 24 hours becomes aser. So if you had a becher that you use it for wine all year round, it was kosher Pesach wine, but you dip your challah in there sometimes, and some crumbs are left in the becher for 24 hours, so you didn't wash it out till Mitzvah Shabbos, this becher became chametzdik. It needs regular Hag'olas to kasher from kavush. The Alter Rebbe says there's such a thing called, if you can't do Hag'olas, it's called milui v'irui, that you fill it up fully with cold water, you let it stand for 24 hours, you pour out the water, and you pour in another set of water full till the top for 24 hours, and again, you pour out the water, and you do it with a third amount of water for the third time. That's called milu v'irui. That only helps for something which went in through kavush. Kavush means soaked in it. Isra went in through kavush, one could do milu v'irui and kasher in such a way. And the Alter Rebbe says, the chiddush is that this works even for cheres. Even though for cheres nothing works, in most cases not even libun, as we mentioned already in the previous year. However, for kavush, something that went in b'tzeinan, milu v'irui would work even for cheres. Now, by kavush, there's another halacha, that something that has a certain sharpness to it, like melach, or chometz chazak, is Allah Shnam Agan Avram. Chometz chazak also has a din of sharpness, and therefore the halacha is that these things, or tzir, these things could become kavush kishir kedei sheyala lo eish v'yartiach. But some say it's 18 minutes, or other it's much shorter time, like it takes to heat up a pot of water. And then if you soaked an isser in some chaymetz chazak, then the halacha is you don't have to wait 24 hours. The isser should absorb in the keli. Even in a short while, 15, 20 minutes, it could be absorbed into this keli. However, it's very interesting. If you read the Alter Rebbe in Tafnun Aleph, and it discusses about Yain Saraf, the halachas of Yain Saraf, it has many details. Yain Saraf has also a smell. Our minig is that we don't kasher keli of Yain Saraf that have mashke in it, because the smell remains. Also, Yain Saraf is not pogam after 24 hours. It doesn't become eine binyayme because it has a strong taste and a good taste, mashbiach, even after 24 hours. However, the Alter Rebbe, it's mashma over there that it doesn't have a din of chayzik, that it's chaymetz chazak, that it goes in less than 24 hours. It's mashma the lashon over there that he soaked it for 24 hours. Also kaponim gedenkt sich mir the lashon from Alter Rebbe that it's mashma that yain sort of doesn't have a din of chayzik, of chaymetz chazak. Interessant, why not? But also is mashma. But al kaponim, so there are many keilim that even though you never used it for hot chametz, and you never put it into a dishwasher washing with other chametz the keilim, you never washed it out while there was crumbs in it with hot water. Nevertheless, the very fact that it was able to be soaked in it, that by itself would need Hag'olas. We might have a lot of things that we still missed, but I'm going to start now to go over to the practical halachas of kashering, and perhaps some more klolim will come about in the middle of doing this. Now, the halachas in order kashering, kashering does one thing. It takes out beliyas. Beliyas means absorptions. Kashering does not take care of any be'ain. Any mamoshes that it's left has to be washed off thoroughly before you kasher. Sai, it will make it worse if it's there, because now adarabah beliyas will go in. The kelas and Eina Ben Yom is not going to help you, because Eina Ben Yom is only for the beliyas in there become pogam after 24 hours. Physical chametz which is there might have a good taste after 5 days as well. So adarabah, you're going to kasher and you didn't wash it out thoroughly. You just now made the keli treif. You just now made through the heat the isser going into the keli. So of course a keli has to be thoroughly washed off. If it's an oven and has a lot of schmutz, it has to be easy off. And to take off with all the schmutz has to come off before we kasher. And then kashering can happen. Ma'ikir adin, when you do libun gomer, so sometimes libun gomer, the reality is that libun gomer could burn away every physical thing as well, but it's not so pashut. Sometimes an oven could have tons and tons of oil, commercial ovens, that you could see. Sometimes the oil catches fire and it could burn for a day from all the oil that's in there. So to assume just because somebody made a good libun that everything is burned away, even though Shulchan Aruch is mashma that if you have a crack and you can't clean it out, you should put gecholim on that crack before you kasher it, and that will burn away everything that's in there. Is aber in that common sense. Yeah, if it's a mashu, some kleinigkeiten over there will be burned away. If there's tons of schmutz there, has to be washed out. It's not going to be burned away so easily. So the first thing is when we go to kasher anything, is we need to wash it out. Now, if we wash it out, if it's isser, if we wash it out with hot water, now the isser just went right back in. So now we have to wait the 24 hours from now. As we mentioned yesterday in Shira, kashering always goes with waiting 24 hours to make it first pogum. So you'll have to wash it out thoroughly and then wait 24 hours. Versteht sich, when you wash it out, it should be in a place where it's not going to make anything else today, from the toilet sink or something like that. And then you wait 24 hours, and then you kasher. Rust is something that blocks the hot water from directly going in there. Rust will not let the kashering go through. But it says clearly in Shulchan Aruch, it's only if it has a mamoshes, the rust. If it's only discoloration, it's a rusty color, that's not a problem. One could kasher even if it has a rusty color. That doesn't block anything. Talking about blocking, the Alter Rebbe makes it very clear in Siman Tov Nun Beis And I'm mentioning it because I saw people make on it. When it comes to toiveling, we know that people could take a sifcha, they take a certain basket or a shmata and put many spoons in it and dip it into the mikveh. And the Alter Rebbe says over there it's kosher because the water is not a chatzitza. It's light, and the water goes through the holes, and the Keilim are toivelt in the water while it's in the basket. Even though it touches the basket, touching the basket doesn't make it a chatzitza enough that the water doesn't get in there. Moisture goes in there, it's mechuber to the mikveh, and that is kosher enough to be called a tvila. However, when it comes to kashering, you need to boil out. You have to, it's even worse than asering. Asering is enough that a mashu went in, becomes aser. To kasher, it's not enough that a drop came out. Everything has to come out. If it just became hot for a split second that something came out, it's good enough to aser the water. It's not good enough to kasher the keli. And therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, if two spoons touch each other, over there in between where they touch each other, the water, the heat doesn't really penetrate enough to take blias out of that spot. If a maid says the Alter Rebbe, you have to put each spoon separately. If you want to put it on a sifcha, on a shmata, you have to put them out one by one and lower it into the hot pot like that, which makes it much harder. So you can't just take a whole basket, throw in 20 spoons, and dip it into the big yaira that has boiling water. It's not going to work. The Alter Rebbe says clearly also when you hold something with a tzavas, with a plier, because it's too hot, then you have to move it. You have to open the plier for a second and move it to the next drop, or you're holding on that keli, to another spot. So the original spot should not get burned out. The halacha is that kashering is not like tvila. It doesn't have to be kuloi b'mayim at one time. As if it's tvila, you can't tevel a half a goof and then another half a goof. It has to be kuloi b'mayim at the same time. However, kashering does not have to be like that. So you could kasher a half a keli first, and hold the other keli with your hand, then the other side, and then turn it around and hold the other side with your hand, and kasher the other side, because kashering is not tvila, has to be burned out. So that's how. So when it comes to kashering, anything that we need to put in a pot is very simple. You take a pot. The pot could be milchik or fleischik. The pot could be. Make sure better the pot shouldn't be used 24 hours. The pot was not used 24 hours. And then you take the keilim that need to be kashed, which were not used for 24 hours as well. So any blia which will come out will be already b'di'evet noisen tam l'fgam. It won't aser anything. And now if it's going to go back in, it's going to be also not vanat, as mentioned by Hilches in yesterday's shir. And you'll dip it in there, and you take it out, and you cool it off. The reason you cool it off is because you don't want to be nehana. You want to show that you're not nehana. Because the ketchili, we're not allowed to cook in a pot she'eina b'nyema. In noisen tam l'fgam. You want to show we're not planning to be nehana from this water. You want this water shouldn't be absorbed. You want it to go off. So l'ketchila, we try to wash it off. Of course, we're not malachim. It will go back a drop before we wash it off. It's not a problem because it's noisen tam l'fgam and not banat. But l'ketchila, we wash it off. So again, you have a big keli, which is not used for 24 hours, and the kelim that you kasher are not used for 24 hours. Everything is clean, and you throw in keli by keli into this pot, and then you cool it off with cold water. That's how you kasher things which could go into a pot. Now comes other inyana, which cannot go into a pot. A countertop, a tabletop. So let's discuss how first these things became osir. Now, if you take a hot kugel, and the hot kugel is called a gush, and even though it came out of the pot, you took it out with a fork from a pot, a piece of kishke from the choln, which is real chametz, took it out with a fork. So according to many poskim, it's maybe not considered a kledishin anymore because it's outside of the original pot. According to many poskim, the Alter Rebbe is choishes for this in Mishnah Gimel, that it's called a gush, and therefore it's not a liquid, and therefore it retains its heat because it doesn't need walls to hold it. It stands independently, and therefore it doesn't become a klisheni yet. And when you put it down, it has a din kledishin. Even when you put it down, into the klisheni, it doesn't become a klisheni because it does. It's not like water that the walls hold it, and therefore tfanos netzanano is the second keli. The cold walls cool it off. Over here, cold walls don't cool it off because it's standing on its own. It only touches one surface at the bottom, and therefore, if you put a cold kugel, according to many poskim, you have a klidishin over here, and therefore, this as is not only like the machlekes that we had of iru klidishin also according to most poskim mentioned yesterday, bariches ases kedei klippa. This will also aser kedei klippa, even though according to many poskim this is a klidishin mamish. However, it could only aser kedei klippa because of a new rule. The klal is titoy gover. When you have two surfaces meet, a top one and a bottom one, the top one and the bottom one is always going to be the one that is gover. If the bottom one is hot, it's as if the whole thing was hot. Everything becomes aser. If the bottom one is cold, then the bottom one will cool off the top one to a certain extent, negate to many halachas, but at least negate to this instant, legaba, this connection, it will be considered as if it's cold, because the bottom one is cold. However, for 1 second till it cooled off, it was able to be beleya. It's ademekele till it cools off, beleya is beleya, and that's why the aser is only kedei klippa. So if one takes a hot pot, which a hot pot you took off the fire, l'chol adeyas, it's a klidishin. It's better than a gush. It's worse than a gush. It's the klidishin itself with the hot walls. The tfanos hamchamamos that just came off the fire. And there's some crumbs at the bottom of the pot, schmutz of chametz, and you put it down on a countertop. L'chol adeyas shebe'olam, you have over here now a klidishin mamish. And these crumbs are a klidishin. They're coming from the fire, and they're connected to tfanis mechamamis. However, when you put them down on the countertop, because the countertop is cold, the pot remains a klidishin. If anybody put something in there, it has a din klidishin. But legaba the yachas between the pot and the countertop, we say titoy gaver, and it will only allow the countertop to become aser kedei klippa. So 90% of the times, a countertop doesn't become aser more than kedei klippa anyway. But it could become aser mamish menatayde because it's a klidishin mamish, a hot kugel or a hot pot, hot lokshen falls sometimes. So it could become real aser, but it's only aser kedei klippa. If one would have a machine that's able to take off one shicht, one slice, one thin slice like a sheet of paper, be able to take off, then it would be kosher. However, we can't do that. So that's why we need to kasher it. So how do we kasher? So 90% of the times the way things become aser at the table is usually from a iru, things from a klidishin spilled on it. And therefore, iru klidishin should have worked. Kabbaloi, kachpalte, as we mentioned yesterday. So you take hot water, you boil up in a tea kettle hot water, and you pour hot water on the tabletop. You pour hot water on the countertop. That should work. But if I put a hot pot on it, which had chametz underneath, now iru klidishin, as we mentioned, is a machlekes rishonim, but the iru is really like a klidishin once it comes out of the klidishin. The pot that I put down, or the hot kugel, might be klidishin to many other poskim. So iru won't kasher it, according to many shittas. According to the shittas, that iru is not like a klidishin. So here, there will be a chumrah. We were always machmer that it's a klidishin, but over here, it's going to come out of kula. According to the Rishonim, they say iru is not a klidishin, and this countertop became also directly from a pot. You need to do better than that. And because of this, there is the concept of Evan Meluban. Evan Meluban means you take a stone, you heat it up on fire until it becomes burning hot. That this by itself becomes like a piece of fire. And anytime you're going to pour water onto this stone, you're going to hear the sizzling. You're going to see the water starts reboiling. So it's as if you put it back into a klidishin. So the eitzah for this is, as you hold in one hand, today you could buy in the hardware stores, there's a long handle with a cage, and the cage has a place where you put a stone in there. and you put that on the fire. The handle is like a foot long. You could pick you put it on the gas range, and the cage with the stone boils, heats up, extremely hot. You could take a towel or a glove, be very, very careful, and hold the handle from a foot away. And with your left hand, you hold it a half an inch away to the table, quarter of an inch, something like that. And with your right hand, you pour hot water coming out of the tea kettle, which was just boiling, 212. And even though it's only an iru klirishin, and there's a machlekes whether it's klirishin, but through the Evan Meluban that you are now pouring on an Evan Meluban that re-sizzles, that re-boils, and you go step by step by step by step all over the table, and that makes it as if a klirishin itself did it. This is what's used also for many other Keilim that you cannot put into klirishin. You can't cook up water in there. So the Eitzah, the Evan Meluban, is there to make an iru klirishin back into a klirishin. And that's what this Evan Meluban is for. Now, the Alter Rebbe says it's a machlekes haposkim, whether the Evan Meluban really works, whether Taka makes it into a klirishin or not. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says like this: but the Evet, if you did it, even if you filled up a sink, let's say a sink, you fill up a sink with hot water, even tap water, and then you take this cage that holds the stone, or you could do it even with a hammer. Some people put a hammer, I don't know, if they know it shouldn't crack the wood or the metal. A hammer that has a rubber handle, you put the hammer part on the fire, it's metal, it's going to be boiling hot, and then you hold it by the rubber handle, and you go into the sink, and you go around the bottom, and then around the walls, and you could see the water literally starts bubbling all over, whatever, an inch or 2 inches around where you hold that hammer, that will start bubbling all over. The Alter Rebbe says, but the Eved, if you did it that way, it's also okay, because the Metzias was that it bubbled, Maila Babuis, through a heat of fire, which originally came from fire. But the Alter Rebbe says better is to do it, that you hold it with one hand, and you pour directly iru klirishin on it while you move it around. Not that the water is there already, a klisheni, and you reboil it through the stone, because you try to make it the closest possible to a klirishin. So iru klirishin is the closest to a klirishin. It's still not klirishin. So the stone turns it back to a klirishin. However, if you fill up the sink with water, even if you filled it up from a chainik, from a tea kettle, it's still going to be now a klisheni only. So rather, you should make from an iru klirishin back into a klirishin through the stone. So if you want to kasher the surface that is really chametzik, and you really need to do a good kashering for it, you need a stone. So for example, somebody has a stainless steel sink, which is real chametzik. You take hot pots right off the fire. They could have lakshan underneath. You could do other stuff underneath, and you put down into the sink. So besides when you cool off the lakshan, whatever it pours over, which is irui klirishin, but you'd have many times a gush. Many times, it gets to the sink is for sure chametzik. No question about it. Yeah. Now, even though we put an insert into a sink, it's not so pashut. If people use hot water on Pesach, that hot water comes back up. It's a shail of klirishin, klisheni, and it makes a connection between hot water and the sink. It's not, as we mentioned yesterday, ein beli oilech mikeli el keli beloy roitev. Other covered surfaces have no connection to food. A sink will intermingle with hot water, with other things. So a sink needs to be kashered very well. So a sink needs to be kashered with a stone. If it's stainless steel. If it's not stainless steel, we'll talk later whether you could kasher. But a stainless steel sink could be kashered api halacha. Nor was then the shaila is iru klirishin is lav dafke kashering all the things which you had a klirishin mamish on it. And therefore, the best thing is you need to take a stone. A lot of people, you know what you're doing, you don't want to ruin it, but you could take a torch. And you could actually go around with a torch. As we mentioned yesterday, libun kal is the same din as the Hag'olas. If you have a sink, depends on the gauge how thick it is, but if you hold it 3, 4, 5 seconds, not even, it becomes boiling hot the other side as well, and you'll sometimes even hear a crack even. It changes the shape a little bit because one side becomes hotter, usually not gefährlich. So you go in order. You start at one spot, and you point the flame down, for example. So the spot where you're holding, count till 3. Then you go to the next spot. That's already 3/4 hot from the fire which was shooting at the next spot. Count till 3. Then go to the next spot. As opposed to if you'll run from one spot to the other, get nervous, you need patience. Then you're not going to it'll take too much. If you go in order, so I'm starting at one point, the next point is almost there, the next point is almost there, so I'll just have to go slowly from one spot to the next spot, to the next spot, to the next spot. So that's how you could kasher the sink, which is 100% okay. It's libun kal, and it's 100% Hag'olah. A sink doesn't need libun, it needs Hag'olah, and that works. When it comes to the faucet at the bottom where the water runs off, there sometimes there's glue. Underneath could be a plastic pipe. Therefore, you have to be careful. Don't shoot a fire in there; you'll burn it. And also, anytime there's a chashash dilma paka that you're scared that you're not going to do the right job, then the kasherin doesn't help. All around the sink is no problem. When you get to the faucet and to the handles, don't use fire. I saw many handles, many faucets look exactly metallic. They're not. They're painted silver. They're plastic. I had it I was doing it, all of a sudden it melted away under my hands. Yes, I have to be very careful. Over there, if one can, if you know for sure the whole faucet is metal, for sure. So first of all, the strainers always have to be changed. Take out the strainers full of chametz, full of schmutz. Take it away for $1.95, you buy a new strainer. Or use the shmatas that they use on Pesach. They use the strainer. Take it off, and then if it's 100% metal, double check that. Not just on the color. Double check if it's metal, and you could use the torch, most of the spout that comes out, which also becomes chametz. Sometimes you put a pot of lotion to cool it off before you open the hot water, the cold water, whatever. You get all the vapor and all the heat, coming up. And that's titoya gover. The bottom one is hot. It's even worse than the sink, the spout itself. So that needs a real kashering. If not, you could do with stone. And then the rest, you could be makel over there. The rest is reingefallen loction between the two faucets over there. Wash out thoroughly, clean with a good agent, and then just pour hot water over as an iru clinician. Over there, probably we never had more than an iru shaila. Pour with the iru clinician, and the minig is to cover it. Put silver foil, other things to cover, because things we touch all year round, we cover, just as the minig is. That's the concept of a sink. A tabletop should be the same concept, and a countertop. However, what we mentioned before, over there you won't have water. You have it dry, and we all cover it. Either we put plastic, silver foil, people put other cardboards, other types of materials. You have these plastic boards that we put out on the table. And then we have also on Pesach, we have a tishtach on it, a tablecloth. So you're always going to have ein bli oilech mikeli, el keli, below it will be 3 Keilim. So but the avid, you won't have a shaila. People still have the minik. They pour it off just with hot water. Versteht sich, not a dining room table. You're going to ruin it. Also on a dining room table, usually never hot chametz comes. Nobody eats on a dining room table without covering. And so these fancy tables, nobody eats without covering. So it never became chametz through hot chametz. So just wash it off thoroughly and cover it with the one or two, with the tablecloth, with the extra covering of silver foil or any other thing else, and plus a tablecloth, you are fine. But a dinette table that we eat all year long, and people eat directly on the table. Some use that for milchig or for fleischig, and they have a tishtach only for the other type. So that becomes real chametzdik. However, just pouring off hot water will be sufficient, because even though it's not 100% you didn't do the stone, but we're going to cover it anyway. So make sure you dry it. Make sure there shouldn't be no water in between. You dry it and you cover it, and then that's fine. And so too with the countertops today. We wash it off thoroughly, make sure there's no chametz there, wash it off thoroughly, and we pour it over with hot water, because that's how our minig is, and we, with the iru tradition, and then we cover it well, and by covering it well, there's going to be no connection to the food. However, we still kasher it, because in case a kid pulled it off, it could be something touched, a whole pot of soup by mistake went on it. Nois and Tamil of Gam all year long would be Amachaya. It's after 24 hours, but the Abbot, everything is kosher. On Pesach, but the Abbot, everything is not kosher. Based on Talmud of Gam is not kosher b'di'evet. So therefore we want it covered as well. But b'di'evet, now once it's kashed with the irui, so then you'll ask a shayla rav, will be much easier, even if it's uncovered for a second sometimes, as something happened, you'll ask a shayla rav. You can find many more tatum if you do it that way. When we pour hot water on any surface to kasher, we don't give a spritz and it goes all over the table. Because iru shaloi nifsek hakiluach is not the same as iru shaloi nifsek hakiluach, as we mentioned. Iru shaloi nifsek hakiluach is not mavashal anymore. It doesn't have the koyach of a klirish l'choladeis. It still has aser things, but it doesn't kasher. Iru shaloi nifsek hakiluach, which is still connected to the klirishin, that's what does the kashering. And you have to go slowly on every spot. You go slowly on every spot. We're not malachim. It's not shaykh to say that this pour didn't cover 3 inches around. We go slow all over, and we try, to go every spot. Also, the table has to be washed off thoroughly before. We make sure that it's dried before we do the kashering, because otherwise, titoy gaver, especially with water, that the Rebbe says in Chashabas, that water mixes. It's even worse than stam titoy gaver, to a certain extent over here. That water will mix and cool off the whole water even better than stam titoy gaver. It will mix with the hot water and cool off the hot water, so you don't even have b'chlal kashering. So it has to be dried off fully. And so too, if somebody is kashering a table and a phone call came in and he had to stop, and these waters that you put on the table, it's 1/4 of an inch water. That's it. 30 seconds later, this water is not hot. Absolutely not hot. It's warm, not hot anymore, not yatzaledus even. So you pour water and you stopped in the middle, and then you continue, and that water ran over the rest of the table. You have a cold table over here with cold water, which lav dafke that your water is touching the table. It's touching cold water, which is getting cooled off. So make sure you do the whole table at one time. Don't procrastinate. If you want to do half a table at a time and then wipe it off, and then do the other half and wipe it off. And then again, as we mentioned before, the minig is we cool off everything after we cash it with water, because we don't want the water to reabsorb. And we pour cold water to wipe off the table. Have enough towels or shmatas around, especially if you live above another fellow and you don't want your water to go to Shachan's house. It's not an Indian Chaz Shalom to be mazik somebody while we're doing our mitzvahs. So make sure you have enough towels around the table, and takigis, and pour it with. It should be, make sure that every spot is covered, but after gießen in the welteran, that it should run on the floor, tons of water. Try to be very careful. And the same thing when you spritz it off with cold water. Take a cup of cold water and slowly spritz all around to cool off the water, and then wipe it off thoroughly. And when it's fully dry, that's when you cover it. So the food will never have any connection to the table. And so too, the same things we just said, you do the same thing with a countertop. Coming to the stove, a stovetop. A stovetop is usually glazed, whether it's black or white, these fancy colors. These are usually made out of a porcelain, which cannot be kashered. It's like a cheres, according to some Pesach. And therefore, we don't kasher it for Pesach, and therefore we don't put stuff on there on Pesach. For those who don't have a separate Pesach kitchen or a separate Pesach gas range, certainly this year, a lot of hardships, a lot of Jungelite who were told not to go to their parents, who can't travel, never made Pesach before, and they're going to have to make use with whatever they have. They're going to have to follow strict halacha. Lav dafka, they'll be able to do extra chumras. So they'll have to take that original gas range that they have and make Pesach with it. So how do you do that? So the grates means the pieces that come off. So the gas range has these grates. You see the grate? This is the grate where the pot goes on. So ma'ikir adin, if you're going to clean the surface underneath very thoroughly, you're going to cook, and this is kosher. Let's say you bought a new grate or you kasher it. So there'll be ein bli oilech mikeli el keli v'lo reitif. It's going to be from the gas wrench, from the surface of the gas wrench to this. It's dry. There's no water here. Is ein bli oilech mikeli el keli. No chametz will come out from here and go into this. And then from this we'll go into another keli, which is the pot, which is also usually dry from the outside. There's fire burning there. Yeah. So b'meila, the gas wrench itself does not have to be really 100% kasher. It is glazed and it's cheres, and we can't kasher it. However, while we'll kasher the grades, that will get a certain level of kashering as well, as we're going to explain. So again, so we're going to kasher this. There's also this piece, as you see, this goes on the middle where the fire comes out. That we can't kasher. We don't want to play with fire there anyway. You don't want to make a gas explosion there. But that is going to be kashered from the fire itself that burns around, that comes out, if it be kasher. But that doesn't touch anything. That's lying right in the middle where the flame comes out. That doesn't touch any food. If anything, food will fall onto this on Pesach. Don't use it. So the way we're going to kasher this is you're going to take a 9x13 pan, this pan, we call it 9x13 at least in Muncie, whatever you call it in your place, and you cover the grate. You cover the grate like this, and I wouldn't do all four together at the same time because they become very hot. I would do one or two, and I put on the gas on the highest level, under that grate, and I let it burn for 10 minutes, 10 to 12, maybe 15 minutes. You don't even need that long. Because the fire will be concentrated, sometimes you'll get even a tiny hole burned through here. Because it's going to be concentrated, so the heat will go all around and will kasher all around, which will become netzutzes nitzna emenu. Will it become red hot? No, because this is a very thick grate, and in order to become red hot, you need unbelievable amount of heat. It's not going to happen. But what I did it many, many times. I kasher dafke at night, shut all the lights, and I had a screwdriver ready. I shut the fire, and same second threw off the 9x13 with the screwdriver, and you'll be able to see the lights are off, and you'll be able to see it pink for not more than 5 seconds. And because the second the fire stops, it's such a thick, and right away it's not going to stay red for long, and it cools off right away. But you see it pinkish, and that's good enough. That's way more than a tzutzes nitzen. It doesn't need to be red hot. It needs to be a tzutzes nitzen. So that's kosher. So again, so that you put on a 9x13 to cover it. You let the fire running for 10-15 minutes. And it depends how thick it is. So if it's thick, you need 15. If it's not so thick, you need less. And you burn it out. But the oven around it will be so hot from this concentration heat that a big chelik, 1/4 of the stovetop, the stovetop, will have a libun kal, or some kind of a libun will have there as well. So, but again, we're not going to use that stovetop on Pesach. And Nisan Tam of Gam is not going to help, but the Evet, we're not going to say that anything falls there, it's kosher. So therefore, we're going to put silver foil, double layer of thicker silver foil that doesn't open, underneath, around, where you cook. You could buy this disposable silver foil that takes the spills in there. So put that foil there, and the rest cover with silver foil. Make a hole. The flames should come out well. It shouldn't choke, and it shouldn't make any carbon monoxide. It should have enough air and oxygen. Make sure the silver foil doesn't cover any place where fire comes out. That could be a dangerous thing. Over there, don't put any silver foil. But on the stovetop itself, make sure it has silver foil. And if something chas v'shalom fell down there, it's okay. It's double. It's fine even on Pesach. So that's how you kasher a stovetop. You can't pour water. It's electronic today. You're going to pour water into there. So the heat that you're going to apply for this will do some kind of a kashering for the rest of the oven, and it will be covered anyway. The custom is that things we use anyway, we all year round, and we touch with chametz, and we cover anyway. So after you kasher this, some people would either putting foil is not practical. It's going to burn down. So one could put a blech, and that's not a problem. So I would suggest it shouldn't be Mikeli al Keli, it should be Mikeli al Keli al Keli. So make sure, and I have to make sure that there's a way that it's wider, so no food but it should touch. I don't know if you could put silver foil on that. It will get stuck to it and ruin it. So make sure the blech is a little wider, so for sure you never touch with the food, or the pot never touches. It should be wider, like than the whole stove or something like that, or covered with something else around it, and have a blech, and on top of it double silver foil. And then one could use it on Pesach like that, because it's Eibli Oilech Mikeli Okeli, but it cannot be kasher. If one has that all year round, then he could afford to buy another glass for Pesach and change every year, that keep that one for Pesach. That's fine. So that covers the stove tops. To kasher an oven, we mentioned already in the first year that the racks and the bottom, which actual schmutz always falls down, needs libun gomer, which needs to be burned out with a torch till netzutzes nitzen amenu. One could put it on top of a stove top and put on all the 4 burners, but the 4 burners will only make sure that they burn out that spot where it is. So you have to move it every 5 minutes, or after 3-4 minutes, move it and keep track where all the spots were burned out. With the racks, it's not an easy job, but one could be done it that way. Now, some say an eitzah, put it on the rack, put it on top of the gas range, and cover it with the heavy silver foil. It will be concentrated like my 9x13 eitzah. It will be concentrated. It will go all over. It will bend it out of shape. I'll tell you a ma'aser shahoya. I followed what I heard from many other people, that the eitzah, how to kasher a stovetop, is to put on all 4 burners and put up Shabbos dike blech on it. And that concentrates all of them, and it spreads, and it heats up everything. I did it once. I never saw a blech running. It became actual liquid, believe it or not. It happened to me. I put a blech, and I put all the 4 burners on the highest, versteht sich not like Shabbos, a tiny flame. It was on the highest. And the whole metal, the whole blech turned into liquid. It ran. I had an avoid the gemura to be able to clean it off, because it got soldered onto the gas range. It avoid the gemura to be able to take it off. It became running. So if you're going to concentrate the rack on the 4 burners, concentrate with the heat, such a heat, it will be misshapen, and it's not so easy to do it. But one could be careful and watch how he does it. So the racks on the bottom needs to be fully kashered with libun gomer. However, the oven itself is not so pashut. I don't have the sefer with me, Madrich HaKashrus HaMatbech, from which has the askama of Rabbi Malo Olav Shalom, and I don't remember if he says it for Pesach as well, or only for all year long, when you kasher by Friar people to make kasher the house, to want to rely that the rest of the oven only becomes aser through zeya, which is lav dafke, because things could spill, and a mashu of schmutz spills. It's not called then it's not called al yedei mayim. It's directly fire. It's a piece of chametz, a piece of lokshen, or something. But on kaponim, there are achreinim who want to say that the rest of the oven you put on the highest degree, and for on broil, or on the highest 500 for an hour or so, and that's how you kasher it. That you should ask it off. However, if you have a self-cleaning oven goes over 1,000 degrees, that burns everything away. The chametz becomes dust, schmutz becomes dust. It burns even a be'ein away, and it does make everything. That does have a din of netzutzes nitzen amenu, and most achreidim, everybody accepts that a self-cleaning oven is considered kashering. Some people rely, and if they have a self-cleaning oven, they take off the grates from the stovetop and put it into the oven, spread it out in a certain way that heat should be even all over, and they kasher it through the self-cleaning oven. But it has to be self-cleaning, it's a full cycle. It has to clock it till it becomes hot. It runs 3 hours, not just run it. There are some other cycles which are high, but it's not self-cleaning. So there's some continuous cleaning or something. It's not self-cleaning. Self-cleaning is really when it goes over 1,000 degrees and it really makes it very, very hot. And that's called kashlik. However, by the doors, when you open the door, there's a gasket around it. That doesn't become that hot. The whole front door, you could see, the whole front door, the glass of the front door could remain schmutzig. Literally, after self-cleaning, the front door, the face, could remain schmutzig. You'll see inside, you could write your name on it. You go open it after it's cooled off, and it's ashes, literally ashes, white ashes. You could write a name on it. However, on the door, you won't be able to. You see that the heat doesn't really get to the door. So the eitzah for that is that it has to be covered. The door from the inside should be covered with 2 layers of silver foil. The only thing is, every self-cleaning oven has a vent where the heat comes out. Some of them, the vent is from the back. Some of them, the vent is from that front door. If that vent is there, you can't cover it with silver foil. You have to have holes or whatever, then you have to figure it out. Or have to call somebody, an expert at Rav or whatever, to figure that out. But the best eitzah is, if someone wants to use it, is you cover it from inside. So there's no connection between the door and the wall. There's a silver foil in between, a whole silver foil, 2. And there's no connection between the food, and even when there's zay over there, nothing goes in. It's fully lined to the outside with silver foil, and there's no connection between the door and the inside is kosher. For those who can't do that, this today you could buy. They have this for many years already in the kosher, in the Fruma hardware stores. It's an insert box. It's basically it's a box. It looks like the old bread boxes, whoever remembers that. It's a metal box with a metal door. That's it. It's a square box, and you put it into the oven. You take out the racks, you put it into the oven. But it's closed. So there's no zayah, there's no connection between the oven and that. You put a silver foil underneath that box. So now you have el keli. You make sure the oven is clean. There's no physical comments there. You wash it out with easy off or something. And then you use that. But make sure when you open that insert, don't open it inside the oven. The whole heat will just make a whole chibur now to the oven, which will be another shaila, which I'm not getting into it right now. So before you open it, before you put anything into that box, pull it out, have a silver foil under the door, which the door now is the floor when you open the door, and pull it out there. It's totally outside. You have a silver foil over there. And then open it. The heat that comes out escapes in the open, not in the oven. So there's no connection between the oven and the food. And the food is always a double seal. It's not a double seal. The bottom put a silver foil, so it's double. And now out there's no connection. So that's the story with the oven. Coming back to the tabletops and the counters, a lot of people today use an iron. An iron instead of a stone. It could be used. An iron is electric fire, but it's mamish fire. But you have to be very careful. First of all, you can't pour water on the top. If you pour water on the top, Rahman al-Islam, you can be electrocuted. It's electricity there. So one has to be careful to hold it, first of all, with a lot of shmatas and gloves, and then hold it very close and only pour the water on the lower part, at the edge of the bottom, where you can hear the sizzling over there and go around. Now, a lot of people, what they do is they pour hot water on the sink, on the counter, and then they take a iron and they go around. They iron the whole thing as if they iron a shirt. I'm not so sure how that works. First of all, you said the Alter Rebbe says not to make a klisheni and then put a stone in there. Make sure you do iru klisheni. So the Alter Rebbe clearly says don't do that. But one could say when it's a hardship, the Alter Rebbe says, but the evidence it's okay, even if it was a klisheni. But in this case, my shaila is that you pour water, the water will become cool. It's certainly not going to be yatzaledis. It doesn't hold the yatzaledis the whole time. And now you go through with an iron, there's not much water there. Just you hold it down. There's not much water. You need the water to boil out. This is pressing down on the table. It doesn't allow water underneath. It's just heat, and it's not libun kal. Libun kal has to be fire. that makes the other side hot enough that the other side becomes yatzaledis. And iron won't do that on a thick table. So, so you have to be very practical. And, the way I did it is I did take a glove and I hold it and I poured water on the tip, but only the bottom part, and only with the tea kettle, which has a very narrow spout. So it's not a spritz this all over, and I pour it just on that spot. But you have to be very careful. It's electricity. One shouldn't be electrocuted. Also, talking about coming back to the gas range, if one has this electric range, which has the coils, the old coils that you become red hot, or somebody goes to a hotel sometimes, whatever, all they have is these types of coils, so that the pot goes on the coil itself. The coil itself you can't take. There's no other grade that you can take off. This coil has the electricity in it, and it goes through inside. Now, those who become red hot is not a problem. You just put it on, make it red hot, and that's the kashering. If one would ask a shaila, but didn't we say hasik p'nim? The fire has to go in from the same side where the food goes in. And here the fire is from the inside the element, not from the outside. The answer is most achreinim say, since the Rambam said, most achreinim, I saw it in achreinim. So the Rambam says that on Shabbos, if somebody heats up a piece of metal in fire till it becomes a Hag'olas, two Rambams, one says that it's chayav on bishul, one Rambam says that it's chayav on mavir. You literally lit the metal. Same way you light a piece of paper on Shabbos, you're chayav. You light a piece of wood, you're chayav. You light metal. What does it mean, light metal? Metal doesn't start burning. It starts glowing. It becomes red hot. That's called mavir. Oy bazoi kumtois, when you make something red hot, it's not called libun, through fire. It's fire itself. It's not shaykh to say that the fire is from the inside, fire is from the outside. This piece of metal now could become a mateches, an ever melubin, to kasher something else. This could boil up water and it's going to be considered a klidishin. He is fire. So when you have anything which turns red hot, mamish red hot, then I don't care hasik p'nim or hasik chutz. That we don't care about that anymore, because then it's mamish fire itself. It's from inside, it's from outside, it's all over. So if somebody has these electric ranges, which the element itself, what you put the pot on, becomes red hot, of course you put it on. So of course on Pesach there's no nice and tam of gam. Remember, so the rest of the range is not kosher. You cover that with silver foil. That shouldn't touch any food. You covered the two layers, and if anything fell down, but it's kosher, and the coil itself becomes kosher through, but that it turns red, because it turns red hot. We didn't cover yet how to kasher a microwave, which pashtas, according to a lot of achreinim, you can't kasher a microwave. It's not simple. We didn't talk about kashering a dishwasher, which is not simple. We don't kasher that usually. So, but the most practical things that we do kasher for Pesach, we did cover. Belina, that I'll try to have another shir. There's still a lot of pratim which we didn't cover, which could still talk about it. And Yetz Hashem, that Eibishter wird helfen, that the Iker zal sein, the kasher zal sein on Machshava Dibur Mainsa. The same way we see how many pratim it goes into the kasher, and the Gashmi is the Keilim. We should kasher our own Keilim. We have the right Keilim, the right Achana, and we should be zeichet to v'neichal sham in azvachem, in apsachem, so shall sein, nicht nur benissen nigalu, but dem Jahr soll man schon sagen, der benissen nicht asidim ligoel, da man soll schon sagen, benissen nigalu, the gula asidim vashlema. Atzloch Rabbi.